75. This particular lodge was founded in 1901.
1901?
Yeah. We have three avowed objects to form a nucleus of the universal good without distinction of race, creed, sex, caste, or color. Encourage the comparative study of religion, philosophy, and science. Investigate the unexplained laws of nature and the powers latent in sentient beings. Could we have some meditation music, please?
Sure. So I'm going to do, you'll just have to forgive my voice because it is what it is. But we had a man who used to come here, and he was a performer in vaudeville. So we have a tradition that we kept his songs alive. He sang practically non-stop. He would break out into song at any given moment and blast everybody away, because they didn't have microphones back then.
Don't encourage me.
Good.
I can do vaudeville.
You're at home here.
Okay, so we'll, if anybody here, some of us know it, so you're welcome to, of course, to sing along. This one is, well, Richard requests this one, so I'll do this one. How do you account for space without object, time, or place? Without object, time, or place, how do you account for space?
We'll give them a
Whatever is here, that is there. What is there, the same is here. He who seeth here as different meeteth death after death. He who seeth here as different meeteth death after death. By mind alone, this is to be realized. There is the same as here.
Did you do Gilbert and Sullivan in college?
You know, since you asked, I was embarrassed for years singing these songs, but I sang them to keep them alive, and then I heard Joe sing them on one of the videos.
Oh, so that is a vaudeville song.
And
yeah.
him and his wife put it together.
Oh.
But when I heard him singing, he sounded so bad that I thought,
So you learned
hey, maybe I'm not so bad.
We have a brief invocation that we do, and then we'll have a couple of moments of silent meditation, and we'll get on to our speaker. Clear light is the source of light, that lighteth every one of humankind that cometh into the world. It is the radiance of cosmic consciousness. Yogins realize it while still in the fleshly body, and all humans glimpse it at the moment of death. It is the light of the Buddha, the Christ, and all masters of life. And to the devotee whom it shines unimpededly, it is the Guru and the deliverer.
Zen meditation. Did you get it?
Okay. So I would entertain a motion to...
I move the business portion of the meeting be suspended.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstentions? This is how we've stayed in business since 1901.
Good.
So that brings us to the speaker of the evening. We're very happy and honored to have Jack Sarfatti here. I'm not going to go into a long introduction. We'll just say that he's a compelling voice.
Haven't been 86 from Trieste yet.
That's right. He hasn't been 86 from Trieste yet. He's a neighbor.
That's
Cafe, that's a cafe Trieste.
And if you do, you can always come here.
That would be something. Not many people are 86 from Trieste.
Oh, we know a few.
And the title of today's
A
talk.
once and future holographic universe.
So let's welcome it.
I heard a magic word, like a Groucho Marx, you say the magic word and the duck comes down, you get $100. But the magic word was cosmic consciousness, which of course reminds me of my late father, Hyman Sarfatti, who was kind of like a mystical Jew, and he was always seeking cosmic consciousness. Right, he was on his quest for cosmic consciousness, and in fact, he read all these books. I guess when he was a kid, and he said when he was a kid in Brooklyn, this is I guess the 1920s, he was born in 1914. Yeah, it must be the 1920s. He would pass by was a Christian Science reading room, and they had big. Yeah, he was like a little kid, 5, 8 years old, or something, and they had this big Bible, and they would change the page, and so he would go every day and read a page, and so he read the whole Bible that way. And then when he got older, he would I guess study and but he started reading all the books, the Hindu books, and in fact when he came to San Francisco, because I was here, my brother was here, came in the 70s, and at that time we had what's called the ESLIN, the Physics Consciousness Research Group, with Michael Murphy and George Leonard and Werner Erhard and all these guys. But in any case, so we met all these the Tibetan lamas and Tarthang Tulku. So I took my father went with me to meet Tarthang Tulku, and Tarthang Tulku took a look at my father one thing and said stay, and invited my father to stay with him for several weeks at the ashram there, whatever, in Berkeley. So they had this kind of thing going on there. So I guess we come, it's kind of in the blood. There is kind of this mystical thing, but he was always seeking cosmic consciousness, and strangely enough, this whole Teilhard de Chardin final causation, the omega point, that's okay. Like if you look at Stephen Hawking, Stephen Hawking's the guy in the wheelchair, and he and the Lou Gehrig disease, it's amazing he's able to do what he does. But in any case, if you look at his book, A Brief History of Time, or so, many millions of copies, though it's hard to anybody to understand it. His later books are actually better. There's better editors. But he asks 4 questions at the end of his Brief History of Time, and he's saying, basically, what is the mind of God? Even though he's kind of doesn't believe in God, but he's saying, that this issue, is there a God? Is there a mind of God? So he's actually asking, is there a kind of cosmic consciousness? That book was written before these new discoveries I'm talking about, or maybe around the time before these new discoveries I'm talking about were really assimilated into the understanding. It takes several years. It's only in the last 2 or 3, maybe 4 or 5 years that's beginning to be clear. And here's the picture that develops. We have this. What's called the moment of inflation. There's this what's called the before the creation, before the Big Bang, so to speak. The universe is in some state which is people have ideas about it, but it's speculative. We don't quite understand the detailed nature of, but it's a vacuum state. It's called the false vacuum, and everything is kind of incoherent there. In fact, it is sort of like Genesis. It's, everything is like turbulence. Everything is it's no order. Everything's kind of chaotic, stormy. And then what happens? But it's an unstable situation, and there is a fluctuation, and it's almost like boiling water, where the water be the false vacuum and the bubbles are sort of this the new vacuum, what we live in. And so there's what's called the vacuum phase transition, and this vacuum phase transition, a lot of energy is released, and that released energy, because according to Einstein, energy is equivalent to mass, so there's enough energy around that particles, actually quarks and leptons, get created, and the various what are called mesons, various bosons. So a whole kind of stew, like this rich stew of elementary particles. You have what's called a quark-lepton plasma, and then everything cools. As space expands, it's like everything cools down. It's called adiabatic expansion in thermodynamics, and so things cool down, and then the matter we're made out of forms. So that was the standard picture, except that picture didn't work because we now find that there are these other forms of matter, that the quarks and the leptons are only, as I said, like at most 4% of all the stuff in the universe. 96% of it, I'm reviewing a little bit, 96% of it is unknown stuff, About 3/4 of that is this anti-gravitational dark energy repulsive field, and about 1/4 of it is